Hey friends, welcome back to Confidence and Coffee, where we keep it real, raw, and a little bit caffeinated. I'm your host, Ashley Henriott, speaker, author, and your go-to hype girl for when life feels like a lot. Around here, we talk about things that keep you up at night. Self-doubt, fear, people-pleasing, faith, and finding your voice again, without the fluff. So grab your coffee, pull up a seat, and let's talk about stuff that actually matters. Hey friends, welcome back to Confidence and Coffee. I am genuinely, I know people say that all the time, like excited, amazing, but I really am so excited for my friend here, Raleigh, and what he's going to talk to us about today. He is so amazing. He wrote a book, and I'm telling you right now, like the conversations have been so heavy lately, but in such a good way that we're not filtering anything. And I love his book and why I wanted him on here. And it's called Vulnerable Rethinking Human Trafficking. Yeah, let me just let you swallow that for a second. But this down-to-earth new friend of mine is not only an author, but he has a testimony. And since 2001 is when he started serving in Christian ministry. And then he became the founder and executive director of Let My People Go. And he's going to talk to us about all the things today. Raleigh, I'm just going to stop bragging on you because I think you're pretty amazing. So, and I said his name right? I said Raleigh.
Yeah, you said it perfectly. That was great.
Okay. Yay. Thank you. All right, Raleigh, tell us a little bit about what's on your heart today. Like, what does the Lord put on your heart today? Tell us about your book. Tell us about your ministry. And just real quick, let me pray. Lord Jesus, thank you for this time with my new friend. Thank you for everyone joining in behind the scenes, Father God. I just pray that you bless everyone listening in and you give the message to whoever is supposed to get this message today. We right now ask that you put a shield of protection in this room, in this community, in this conversation, Father God, that the enemy and all of his attacks and principalities cannot come against what we're going to talk about. And all technology works, Father God, in your favor and in your glory. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, talk to me. Hi.
Hey,
This is
how
my
are you?
friend,
Well, I'm so
Raleigh.
glad that we were finally able to make this work because between our two
I know.
schedules, this has been like we have worked to get here. So it's just pure persistence. And so I'm so excited to finally see you and talk to you and connect again. So thank you so much for having me on, Ashley.
We did it. Yeah, life. It really has been like, yeah. It's a testimony in itself that we're here.
Yeah, it worked out because today I was like, is it going to happen? Is today the day? Is it going to happen? And then I was like, yeah, it's probably not going to happen. It's okay. And I was starting to plan the rest of my day, and then you popped on. And I'm like, it's happening. Get your game face on. So I am so excited. And what I love about what you talk about, especially with confidence, and what I think is cool about kind of what I bring to the table with vulnerability and caring for other people who are vulnerable is these are two things that I think should coexist. And I think sometimes when we're mired in our own vulnerability, it's hard to be confident because we're focused on all the wrong things. We can't hold our vulnerability in one hand and then say, yeah, I accept that this is where I'm at, and that's okay. But I can also be confident in who I am and who I've become and who I'm becoming. And I love that about what you have to say. And when I had you on my podcast, the Mercy Cast, I feel like we delved into that, and it just was a really rich conversation. So thank you for being on.
Yeah, and why we're here today, because I 100% agree. I talk about in my book about vulnerability and transparency. And just to add on to that, and then I'm giving you the attention because you deserve it. I was just thinking in our conversation today, like going back over your book and your bio and stalking you basically, because that's what we do, right? Is that I'm going through a really hard time right now publicly, it is what it is. I try to be vulnerable, and I have been recording myself crying. And I know that seems so awkward. Like people are like, well, how do people do this? And I'm like, valid. It's just as awkward and weird for me. But the Lord reminded me, and the Holy Spirit, it just reminded me is that like, we saw Jesus in his most vulnerable moments. We saw David. We saw Abraham in their doubt and in their fear and in their sin. We saw Simon Peter deny reject Jesus. We saw all the disciples except for Simon Peter get out of the boat. One. And it's, guess what it is, Raleigh? It's recorded. Jesus recorded himself to the point that he was crying and in fear to the point of death. He was bleeding tears
Yeah.
because he was about what was about to happen. And he asked Matthew and Mark and Luke and John, he asked them to record it. And so I was like, you know what? Like, and that's what I shared. Like, I'm going through something really, really hard, but I know God's in this. But it's so vital that we're not just showing the after aspect unless the Lord's like, hey, that still needs to stay private, which 1,000,000% set boundaries for yourself. But also, we need to be vulnerable. We need to show this other side of what it truly is like in ministry, in life, in following Jesus. And so that is something you bring to the table and you do it really well. And you're a man. And just, it's one of those things that naturally, I think subconsciously, we want men, we want leaders in our lives that are following God. And so you're the best one for this. I am curious though. I always love to ask about the book, but like what brought you your heart into writing this book? Like what is the story behind that? Because there's always a story.
No, that's a great question because I never wanted to write a book on vulnerability ever. Like, I
You're a
think
dude.
yeah,
You
so
are a
many of us,
man.
we're allergic to vulnerability. We do not want to talk about it. We do not want to show weakness. If we show weakness, then we can't be loved. If we show weakness, then we're not strong. If we show weakness, then we're not enough. And that seems like the greatest fear that any of us have. But as a man, it's like I had to prove that I have earned the right to be where I'm at. And the beauty
Mm.
is what I'm finding is it's the things that we think disqualify us that actually qualify us to love others. It's the rock bottom moments. It's the pain. It's the recorded suffering, the things that you can't avoid. That when everyone finds out about that thing you don't want, that just may be the start of your story. And we're all on these glory stories, and that's not what it's about. I think we don't go looking for pain. Pain finds you easy enough, but I think it's in those moments of vulnerability that we are put on the same level as everyone, even Jesus, who became vulnerable for us. And we're able to connect in that point, like where we're able to say, you know what, I can't save myself. I can't fix my problems. I can't do any of this, but maybe I can listen. Maybe I can learn. And maybe I can look to Jesus in this moment. And so for me writing that book, I was just looking, I'll never forget. I tell the story in the book. I was going to all these anti-trafficking meetings, and I was feeling real good about myself because I was finally finding something I was good at. And I
Yeah.
was super proud of like, I'm important now. I'm changing the world. Things are great, and it's like
Yeah.
I remember like having to go home on the Upper West Side. I lived in Manhattan at the time, and I'm going home and there's this guy, he's experiencing homelessness and he's like in the median and where the rain gutter part of the median is, his body is kind of discontorted and he's got one arm on the grass and his legs are in the road and I just kind of stepped over him to get to where I needed to go.
Wow.
It wasn't like even this, "Oh, no, I'm gonna step over him." It was just there wasn't really anywhere else for me to go, and I just stepped over him, and that kinda stuff can happen in New York because sometimes people experiencing homelessness, it can be rampant, and it's heartbreaking, but I hate it because sometimes you can get used to it. It becomes just part of the fabric of the city, and I stepped over him, and then the next day, I'm going to this meeting, this anti-trafficking meeting, and it hits me. I've stepped over a guy. And I was just crushed because this is a human made in the image of God, just like me. And I'm sitting there thinking, something's wrong here. And so I asked God, I was like, how would you have us fight human trafficking? Like, what does that look like for you? And I
Mm.
just started reading the Bible. And for like the next few months, all I saw was in the Old Testament, you see this group of three vulnerable populations, and they're kind of grouped together like a summary, of all vulnerable populations. But depending on the translation you have, it's the widow, the orphan, and the sojourner. The widow, the child in need, and the immigrant, oftentimes the stranger. And these three, it's interesting because over and over and over in the Old Testament, God identifies with them. And
Mm.
he'll say things like, I'm the father of the fatherless. He'll say, like, widows find their habitation with me. I put the solitary in homes. He will talk about how he is the God of the sojourner and he protects the sojourner. And so it's like God not only identifies with vulnerable people, but what we also see in the Old Testament is he invites his people to join him. He says, "You were sojourners once in the land of Egypt. Now join now love the sojourner." And so there's this identification to the point of invitation. And then we see the same in the New Testament. Like Jesus is telling a parable about what's going to happen when all is said and done at the end time. And he's going to say, "What you did for the least of these, you did for me."
Yes.
And again, by virtue of that parable, he's inviting us to meet the people he identifies with. Because what he was saying was, when I was hungry, you gave me something to eat. When I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. When I was naked, you clothed me. And both populations are like, we didn't do that. And he's like, what you did for these people, you did for me. And so I realized that God identifies with vulnerable populations and cares for them more than we ever would, but he invites us to join him. We don't have to bring God to vulnerable people. He's already there. And so what I found is when I care for the person in front of me, and that's really become kind of a core value. My goal is not to love every vulnerable person in the world. That was not Jesus's goal. And I think that's a quick way to get burned out, but it is to care for whoever's in front of me. And so no matter who I'm talking to, that is my focus. I want to be present and grounded and engage that person and keep my eyes open. And like for instance, with what you're saying about how you're bringing your vulnerability to bear on your podcast. Like, one, I just want to say I appreciate that because that's hard. I thank you for being willing to do that. It sucks. And I'm so sorry that you're going through whatever you're going through. But I also know that you're probably connecting with people now at a deeper level.
It's crazy. I'm going through a separation.
I'm sorry.
Like towards divorce with infidelity. It's, 10 years,
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's
4 kids. Well, it's so funny that you brought up the verse about, do unto them like you're doing for me, because, I've been through a lot. You read my book, but this by far is the hardest thing I've ever been through. And it was a very confusing time. But the more I go through this, the deeper I do connect with people, the better everything is, honestly. I always asked God when I was in my marriage, I always was like, God, like, give me the fire back, give me the authenticity back. I don't even enjoy what I do anymore. And because I'm vulnerable and raw right now, I'm actually pressing in so much more, and that fire and that natural ability to create and talk about the Lord is back. It's so interesting to me that in those painful moments, like, we find such purpose and we connect with people on that level. Like, two things. One is, like, I like wrestled because, I lost my sister, my grandmother. Like, it was a terrible year last year. I asked the Lord, like, why? Like, this is a vulnerability. The doubt that we could bring to God. Like, why? Why? I'm doing everything you asked me to do. And I did say a prayer that said, if it takes me away from you, take it away from me.
Oh,
Like, yeah. And that's a bold prayer. And I pray that every day. And I ask the Lord, like, I want to be okay if it is just him. I always want to have that stance. And let me tell you something, Raleigh, he took it all away. I mean, I had to stop the book promotion because of this. Like, my marriage blew up in the middle of all of this. I had to give it back to be there for my kids. I mean, he literally was like, here's everything. This person I thought he told me to marry, which I learned God doesn't pick our spouse. We do. We have to stop letting ourselves off the hook in that regard and blame God for everything when it doesn't work out. Or to stay in an abusive relationship and it just be like, well, God told me to, right? God only mentions that he hates divorce one time, and that's because they were abusing their wives and treating them like crap. And he mentions, like, abuse in 4 different Greek languages. Rye is one of them. And it's about deceit over 60 times in the Bible. Anyways, getting off track. I go to say that because the Lord revealed to me, I was like, why are you causing so much pain? Like, this is painful, Lord. Like, and I understand there's a lot of pain, but I'm, and you're not a God of confusion. But the Lord said, Ashley, and I felt like he was punishing me, Raleigh. Like, I felt like he was taking everything away because I didn't do well with it. Like, for a long time, I thought he was punishing me.
yeah.
And the Lord revealed to me, he said, because he gives me a word every year, and the word was freedom. And then he revealed to me, he's like, Ashley, I'm not punishing you. I'm protecting you. I'm protecting you.
Yeah.
And I think that the Lord, I mean, if I connect that to the cross, and I'd love you to talk about this because I really want you to touch on vulnerability as a man, and I'm going to get there, but I promise. But my thing is like, Raleigh, like when I think about the Lord, he didn't just go in there like, I'm going to take on the cross. Like, woo, I'm so bold and brave. Like, I'm going to get beat because you know what? That's what it takes. Like, how culturally, and he didn't. He was so raw. He was so real. Like, he had boundaries. Like he was always checking in with the Father. How have we as a culture gotten away from that as a church and gotten into this aspect of standing bold and standing brave and kind of gaslighting ourselves? I feel like Christians are the worst of gaslighting themselves. And men, like we need men. We need men more now than ever to lead and to be in their feelings and to be connected so intimately with God. And I see such a problem in that. Like from your stance, like you feeling the aspect of walking over a person, not justifying it, which literally just happened the other day. Like there was an old man that I drove by and I felt bad for him and I didn't have cash. And I was like, oh, get him a cheeseburger. I forgot to get him
Yeah.
a cheeseburger. I went and I was like, I'll go to McDonald's. Like, no, I'm going to Starbucks. So I went to Starbucks and got him this stuff. And I'm not saying this because I'm bragging, but like the Lord gave me permission. And he looked into my soul. I had my 15-year-old give it to him, but it was like that could be Jesus right there. That could have been Jesus. That I mean that's what we need to see, right? That could be Jesus. That could be Jesus. That could be Jesus. This could be a test. And not in a bad way or I want back way, but like in the radical faith of trusting him. Like as a single mom, I shouldn't be going to Starbucks, but I am. I'm going to go. You know what I'm saying? But here, I want you to talk to me about this because when you were talking about vulnerability and that story, in your book. Jesus was a man. Jesus was vulnerable. Think about it. Everybody in the Bible, we see them moan and cry and in fear. And like we see, and they're mostly men. The women were actually the ones that were like, yeah, like, no, we got this. Men, step it up. Like the
Yeah.
women in the Bible were the ones that was not begging but believing. The
Yeah.
women in the Bible were in a stance of boldness and belief. The men were over there like, oh my gosh, or sinning and then being like, I made a mistake. You know, David was kind of bipolar. Like, let's be so for real right now. But like, tell me as a man, what happened? What is your opinion on that? What is your perspective?
Well, it's interesting that throughout scripture, you have every character in the Bible is in transition, and how are they responding to that transition is what matters. Some are just leaning into their own strength and they are acting like they have it all together. And I think that's why you see in a lot of churches, and not every church, but a lot of churches, it is almost based on this like momentous mountaintop experience. Like, I am here, I have come, we're going to shout down the devil today. You know, it's this really intense thing. But I feel like what really matters is what happens in just the mundane areas of life. It's the valleys. Like that's how you get to the mountaintop. I've done a few pilgrimages on an ancient route in northern Spain called the Camino de Santiago. And a lot of the walk, you're just walking down dirt paths in valleys, and then you do go up and then you get great views and then you go down, and some of it is raining, some of it is hot, some of it's messy. Sometimes there's people walking with you that you really don't want to walk with you because it won't stop talking, or maybe you're the person that won't stop talking and you're just not self-aware to realize it, so you're impinging on someone else's trip. But at the end of the day, what it is, it's a picture of life. And what I've found is our solution to so many problems is it's transactional, it's not relational. It's like, if I can do this one time, then I'm going to feel like I have value. I don't know if that's
Mm.
connecting, but it's,
No, like they focus on the works of rather than the relationship.
and I think it's there. I think it's in the relationship. I think it's in the connection. Like one of my friends, Josiah Haken, he works with an organization called City Relief that works with those experiencing homelessness. And people always ask him, like their hot button issue that they ask him is, and he's a guy who embodies vulnerability. He's the real deal. You'll have great conversations with him. But what he'll say is, people will say, they always ask, is it ever right to give money to someone experiencing homelessness? And Josiah's answer always was, I mean, like, a good, solid relationship has never started with the exchange of funds. And I don't think he's against giving someone like some money here and there. But what he's saying is sometimes we give money to make ourselves feel better. And then, for me, it's always a case by case basis. But like, I would rather stop look the person in the eyes, treat them like a person, ask them their name, get to know them, because at the end of the
Woo!
day, I know that I don't have it together. My issues are different than their issues, but I have them. I got a few of them, and I'm able to connect with this person. And I think that's really where, yes, we should love vulnerable people. Yes, but we have to understand our own vulnerability. We have to understand that we are in I mean, honestly, we are dumpster fires, but the beautiful thing is dumpster fires do give warmth, and so we, in our vulnerability, can care for other people.
Oh, you just got so bold and so real right now. So bold and so real because people do things to make them feel good in different realms. Like and that's scary because if you think about it, that goes in that, well, I'm a good person.
Yeah.
I'm a good person. I see myself as a good person. Well, we're kind of not to the standard of the Lord. Um, so okay, you told us about the vulnerability part. Tell me about the trafficking part. Tell me about going to these meetings. What is this about?
Yeah, so at the end of the day, there are probably as many as 50 million people who are trafficked around the world. It can be there are statistics that say it's anywhere from $150 billion industry to 236 billion annually. And these people are trafficked for sex, labor, domestic servitude, child soldiering, organs, and they're most often the people who are the most vulnerable, the most susceptible to exploitation, the people who do not come from strong families, the people who are going through a hard time and can't get a job, the people who are new immigrants to town, the people who are living under a social stigma that doesn't seem to jibe with the majority culture, people who are in the margins. And I would define it just simply as, well, human trafficking is the exploitation of vulnerability for commercial gain. And so it's someone with a little bit more power and status than the person they're exploiting,
Wait a
using
second.
them to fix their issues.
Say that again. That was so. Let's say that just gave me, my gosh, goosebumps. Say it again.
Human trafficking is the exploitation of vulnerability for commercial gain. And so whether it's for sex,
Oh
labor,
my
domestic servitude,
gosh.
it's when people find someone a little less together than they are, and they use that person for their own purposes to kind of fix their own
Like
situations.
a project. Like
Yeah.
projects.
Yeah, like a product. It's commodification at its finest. It's taking a person and turning them into, yeah, a product.
That was my whole life. You know what? Like CBN came out here in February. It's supposed to come out April 30 and did like a short story series, docu-series on me. Because my story's so complex. There's so much there. And trafficking does come in different ways and more extreme than others that I don't even want to try to imagine. And for me, my vulnerability was looking for safety. Like I
Right.
was always unsafe. I always felt unsafe. And so for me, it was more like I didn't know what love was. I didn't know what safety was, but I know that I craved to feel safe. Like that was the biggest thing for me. And I was willing to do whatever I needed to do to get that safety, even if it was a false safety. And so I think that people need to examine. I think that trafficking in itself is what you just defined as it makes you really want to look at your life just in general. Like it makes you want to look at your relationships a little bit, like your current situation, like things like that, where it's like, are you doing that to people or are people doing that to you?
And a lot of people who are trafficked, so easy to think, oh, this is just a bad relationship, or this is just how things work out at my job. Anytime there's, we would say, force, fraud, or coercion for the purposes of exploiting someone's vulnerability for commercial gain, you're most likely going to have trafficking. Like if someone says, if you don't do this webcam, then I'm going to take this video and I'm going to show it to your church. Or, I'm going to hold on to your passport until you pay off this debt. Or there's just, yeah, people will trick people, they'll force them, they'll coerce them. It's a big mess, but it's always people focused on people who are really vulnerable.
So you're really calling up Christians in your book. Like you're just calling us up to really see things for what they are.
Yeah, and I'm basically calling us all and myself to not only focus on the vulnerable person in front of me who could really be anyone. We don't know. We often assume people's narrative without listening to their stories, right? Like we're not actually going to people and
So
be like,
dumb.
yeah, like tell me what's going on. We kind of we see someone, we label them, and then we can do away with them. Like if we see someone in poverty, we can say, "Oh, well, they're not working hard enough." We don't know their story. And even if they
No.
aren't working hard enough, what's behind that? What trauma is behind that? The leading cause of homelessness in the world is not a lack of a Protestant work ethic, it's trauma. So, like, what would happen if we actually listened? But I think, yeah, it's that focusing on that person in front of you, but also beginning with the person in front of you when you look in the mirror. Because if we don't understand our issues, we will always push people away because vulnerable people will always remind us of our own frailty, our own issues, our own brokenness, stuff that we don't want to deal with. We wanna pretend like we have it together, and that's what I love about what you're doing right now, is you're not hiding. A few years back, and I never talk about this publicly, but a few years back, I went through a moderately public broken engagement, and
Mm.
it was one of those things where I didn't know that I was a perfectionist at the time. I didn't know that I always wanted to come off like someone who had it together, you know, and at this point I couldn't. And I was broken. And I'll never forget getting a call basically saying that I was doing an interview the very next day after the news broke that the relationship ended. And for me, I mean, like the amount of people that knew, I'm kind of like a I'm not necessarily a private person, but I like boundaries around, you know, my personal life as much as I can. But back then there weren't any like really. I mean, not when everyone found out and I was just like, wow, there's a bunch of people that just learned. And I think for me being a perfectionist, it hurt. It hurt very deeply. And relationships end and it's tragic and it hurts both people and it's so tough, but I'll never forget, I'm at this point of like pure like weakness. I mean, I was struggling. I barely got out of bed that day. I was in bed for like 3 days. I had like some Oreos. I didn't get out of bed to eat. I ate the Oreos and when the Oreos were gone, then I got out of bed. It was that bad. Like I remember having a call with a former Miss Universe who's married to a very well-known former college athlete who's like a TV commentator now.
I know who that is.
And,
We're all in the same circle in the publishing world.
yeah, and so it was kinda cool. Like, Demi Tebow had me on, and I think we had 100,000 people listen, and I was talking to her about Let My People Go, my nonprofit that works with churches to help them care for vulnerable people, and it was weird for me because I can go back and look, and, like, my face is red. It's, like, bright red, but the words worked, but it was like that was all I could do that day because I summoned
Wow.
the little bit that I still had. But what I've found is, and this is what you were saying earlier about yourself, there's something special that happens when we have nothing left to give. Because now it's not about us working out of our excess. We have nothing. And God has to fill that tank. Like he has to. And he has called us to this work. He has called us to love our neighbors. That is really a big part of our vocation. He has called us to engage the person in front of us, even when we're wounded, even when we're licking our wounds and struggling and feeling awful. Like there are
Mm.
opportunities for us, even in our brokenness, to not do it perfectly. No, no. And when you do it perfectly, one, you're not going to, but you send the wrong message. But when you come at it from a perspective of, I'm just here, God
Hold on,
shows
Raleigh.
up.
Like TikTok wants to end your live if you don't. Anyways, okay. I don't want anybody to miss that. Go back. Tell me what you're saying.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, like when you have nothing to give, God will always show up. And you mentioned how even Jesus, his suffering is recorded. And even David says that I want to say it's every tear basically that we ever cry is like, I don't know if he said bottled up or God has it bottled up or like it's basically God has a record of every tear, you know, and you're not alone in your suffering. You know, the Lord is close to those who are crushed and brokenhearted. He's
Hmm.
close to those who are vulnerable. And I think when in those moments where we have nothing to give, that's when we actually lean on what he has for us. And it's going to be messy. It's going to be sometimes even weird and awkward, but it's going to impact people. And I never had a platform where I had 100,000 people watching me at one time or something like
Mm.
that. Never. And I want to say it was that. It was a really high number. I was like for me, I was like, "This is wild." And it was like any other day, I would have probably overthought like, "Oh, I gotta look this way, or I gotta look that way, or I gotta." I was just doing well enough to show up.
That's what he wants. That's the position he wants us in. He's positioning us. He's protecting us almost from ourselves or the things that we don't see about ourselves.
Yeah.
And then he creates awareness of those things like the perfectionism. Like, very, for me, I am very controlling. I am very, like, and not in that way, but trying to, that's where my perfectionism comes from, is in my trauma. Like, everything has to be perfect. The house has to be perfect. Everything has
Yeah.
to be organized.
Yeah.
Everything has to look a certain way. And God's like, I'm going to take everything. And honestly, it's the best thing he did, because, like, our children don't want us to discipline them. Like, they hate us at the time. I have, what, 4 kids, 15 to 5. And at the end of the day, there's something deep down inside them that needs it and wants it. It is a necessary thing to do. And so the Lord will discipline us, because deep down inside, I know for me, I'm weirdly grateful for this pain. I'm weirdly grateful for what I learned in that kind of relationship that I was in, how I blamed myself for years and years and years. It just challenged me to want more self-awareness. It challenged me to heal. It challenged me to go deeper in myself, and I started to see the truth. And now I
Yeah.
get to take all of that into another relationship, which, if God has for me, but I mean, that's one of those things where it's like, I know I have a lot of love to give. And so I'm not going to close myself off, but I'm also aware, like right now, like for me, I'm in a season of like just wanting connections and friendships and like things to happen naturally, not to make them happen, not to play little games. Anyways, we're getting off track. So tell me about the ministry. Tell me about your ministry, and how do you talk about that in your book?
Yeah. So really the book in so many ways is kind of the origin story of me discovering who I am, but also how the ministry was kind of an outgrowth of that. Like it kind of came out of who God was making me to be. It kind of came out of the things that I loved most. And what I was finding, I always thought I was going to be a pastor. I went and I checked every box that you could check. And again, perfectionist, I was trying to make sure that I was going to be a pastor at a church, and then, wanted to be a college pastor,
I
and
feel like you'd be a great college pastor.
I was a college pastor for a little while, and it was great, and that's where I found this call to loving vulnerable people. And I still love the work of the ministry, especially the pastoral ministry in the local church. But
Yeah.
it's funny, I ended up, as I was doing the work, I had this heart for the local church, but then I had this heart for vulnerable people. And I was thinking, well, what does it look like to bridge the gap? And yeah, we began focused only on human trafficking. But as time went on, we started to realize, yes, vulnerable people can be trafficked, but there's so many other things that happen to vulnerable people. So what does it mean to actually help churches recognize and respond to vulnerable people? What does it help? Or how do we help churches build an infrastructure within their congregation to identify, empower, protect, and include people that they
Yeah.
normally wouldn't? Because oftentimes we will put a person in a program in our church, but we won't put them in a pew next to us. And I want to see churches just filled with
Woo!
messy people together, right? Like, I want to see people just kind of together and just doing life, because, Deacon Bob may look like he has it together, but Deacon Bob may have some issues that no one knows. No one knows about Deacon Bob's issues because Deacon Bob's good at hiding, because we learn
Ooh.
not to ask or receive the second question on Sunday. When someone comes up to you and says, "Hey, how you doing?" "I'm fine." We either move away before they ask the second question, or when we ask that question, we don't really want to know the real answer. So we settle with that pat response, because if we can just get that, then we did something. And I think I want to help churches go beyond just being nice and learn how to love the person in front of them.
That's what we're called to do. That is so, my gosh. Listen, I'm going to just repeat it about, like, we want to put people in a program, but we don't want to put people in a pew next to us. My God. You're just preaching so much fire. Am I making you laugh?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's true, right? Like it's so I've seen it so many times, and I've had churches, like, when you do this work, and this work too, like when people will come up to you and they'll hear about what you've done, and then they'll say, "That's really good, but Do you know about what
Yeah,
we're doing? And it's cool. It's cool. I'm always up to learn, but every now and then I'll have someone say, "It's really great that you do that. Let me tell you about what our church is doing." And it's always something extravagant, like we have a clothes closet or a soup kitchen, or we prepare 1,000 meals in our parking lot every day and stuff like that. And I'm like, that's really cool. But then my next question, and I'm not trying to pick them apart. I think it's amazing that they're doing that. And wow, the volunteers and the vision to meet that immediate need and do those acts of mercy. Beautiful. I think it's super cool. We could all be leaning into that. But my next question is always, so like you got this cool program. How many of those people are actually going to the church? Crickets every single time. And I think there are so many other programs in our communities that what would it look like if the church was just that spiritual community that, yes, we could meet some immediate needs, but we're also meeting holistic needs. Like we're going to meet your needs spiritually, yes. Physically, yes. But we may have to collaborate with the other stakeholders and be that Christian voice as these other people navigate other programs. And so, because I think people, when they come to your church, are not looking necessarily for a handout. They're looking for community, deep down at least.
they're looking to belong
Right. 100%.
and be seen, which I talk about that in my book about like we naturally want that. We don't need to shame those things or be defiant. We need to direct them at the Lord. But as Christians, for us that have done that, we also need to make a way for others too.
Yeah.
We also need to be like, this is the way. This is the way. And that's what we do. We don't need to just sit cozy and be like, well, I know Jesus is coming pretty soon and I'm good. And, no, we're supposed to get in the dirt. We were messy. We know how to navigate the dirt. Like for me, my biggest blessing is that for all the things I've been through, all the darkness that I had to walk in, I found my way to the light. And now I'm not going to just stay in the light. I'm going back to the darkness to help other people navigate right out of it. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
that's I'm so blessed for my story in that regard that I can help others the way I wanted to be helped. Like what if we look at it like that? Like wanting to help other people the way you wanted to be helped.
Well, it's interesting because as you're talking, it kind of brought to mind a really random thought. But in the early creation narratives of different cultures, human beings were created out of I think it's the Enuma Elish. It talks about human beings being created out of the body of a god. But in our scriptures, we're made from the dirt, we're made from the earth, we're made from the stuff. God takes what he makes us. There's something beautiful there. Like you talk about getting down in the dirt. Well, that's where we kind of belong. In a sense, in a good way. Like we were made to be vulnerable. We were made to be dependent. Sin exacerbated that. Yes, sin made it worse. But we were never meant to have it all together and be completely independent and not in need of God or anyone else. Like I need my friend who's a mechanic because my car breaks down, or I need the person who prepares the food at the restaurant, or I can't exist without people, without tangible acts of love and caring and community and belonging. I can't. I mean, it's a really old example, but no one is a lone ranger. Like no one is that person who's just going to be completely and utterly self-sufficient, and you're not supposed to be. And so it's okay when
Amen.
when we're going through it because we are able to say, you know what, I'm going through it, but guess what? There are so many people who are fighting their own battles today. And so because I can see what I'm going through and I'm self-aware of that, I want to be self-aware of what they're going through. And that's the whole point of my podcast. It's learning the art of compassion through the adversity that we face. The things that go on in our lives actually train us to love the person in front of us. And I think that's really what vulnerability is about. I think that's what life is about. And I would say you agree.
1,000,000%. So let me ask you a question. I need to stay on the ministry part, but I have a personal question.
Sure.
So what do you do? Like how are you like logistically, practically helping churches? That.
Oh, that's a great question. We go in and, we provide content for sure. So like the Mercy Cast is part of that. That's our weekly content for helping churches
The
and Christians,
podcast, Mercy Cast.
helping
Yeah.
them understand their own vulnerability. That's what that is. The book Vulnerable it touched on that a little bit, but it was also how to recognize and respond to the vulnerability of other people. So with us, there's going to be like, we want to help churches recognize their own vulnerability, but also the vulnerability of others. Because when those two are combined, that's where we connect with the least of these. That's where we connect with the widow, the orphan, and the sojourner. And the God who became vulnerable for us. And so, yes, it's resourcing. I go in and I speak in churches. I train churches. We help churches with outreach events that we go in. And everything is really designed around this idea that God motivates vulnerable people like you and me to love other vulnerable people by becoming vulnerable for us. And so, yes, sometimes I'm in a church speaking on a Sunday on something akin to vulnerability and loving your neighbor. Other times we're doing a training event where I'm working with 5 to 6 churches in the community, and I'm speaking on how to identify our vulnerable neighbor, how to empower them, how to protect them, and how to include them. Other times, what I just did in New York and New Jersey, New York every year will do a trip where people from around the country will come to New York and learn how to love their neighbor in real time. It's the third week of March every year. But I also go to people's community and I say, like, yeah, today we're going to talk about what human trafficking is from 30,000 feet. But now we're going to get to like, what does it look like as a vulnerable person to love our vulnerable neighbor? And we're going to go out and we're going to have conversations. And I train people to recognize their neighbor and have conversations. And so in the outreach events, we do that to kind of give people a little bit of a flavor of, I can do this. I can actually have a conversation. And when you demystify human trafficking, when you demystify global poverty, when you demystify all of these sensational issues, at the end of the day, you're left with one vulnerable person in front of another vulnerable person. Someone once asked Mother Teresa, they said, how did you impact global poverty? Like, what was your plan? Like, what did you do? And she said, you start with the person in front of you. And so that's ultimately what we're trying to do with the church is help them recognize and respond to that vulnerable person and help them make their church a place that not only identifies their neighbors, but empowers, protects, and actually includes them and gives them the opportunity to be like everyone else in the church. Because at the end of the day, we're all vulnerable and God is calling us all to ministry.
Yeah. What would you say to like mega churches? Like, I think my church is pretty good about that. Very healthy church, but I also like unlike you, I did the ministry and I like, Lord, please don't test me on this, but I don't ever want to work in a church again. I don't
Yeah.
ever want to work in a church again.
Yeah. I understand.
Unless like God genuinely calls me, I'm like, I think that for me though, I did work at a very, very unhealthy, word of faith. I talk about that church, so it was pretty toxic environment.
And
But
spiritual trauma is really rough. Like it's hard.
yeah, spirit church trauma,
Church
you
trauma.
know,
Yeah. Church hurt. Yeah.
leadership manipulation, gosh, it grieves my heart how we try to make people feel something rather than see something. And when I say see, I'm talking about the word of God, see themselves in the image of Christ, not make them feel something so your church gets bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just I didn't like the back end of that. I didn't like the back end of a lot of things. Like even in our industry, like it's like you find out your favorite superhero isn't real. Like you just and I'm not saying that they people don't make mistakes. What I am saying is that they're not truly, which is what made me want to be vulnerable. What made me want to be real because I watched people who I looked up to and I saw them for who they were. They were trying to sabotage my own career and they were not doing what they were preaching. They weren't walking in what they were preaching. They weren't really doing any of that. And at some point, maybe they started off wanting to do that, but I think that we all are tempted, like Jesus was in the desert, by power
Yeah.
and by attention and selfishness and prosperity. And if we're not careful, like if we don't stay humble, if God doesn't take it away, we can all fall trap to that. And I don't ever want to do that.
Well, and what you're saying, with reference to mega churches, I think also applies to, in a sense, even smaller churches, nonprofits, all sorts of organizations, especially organizations that are working with vulnerable people or Christian organizations, because I think the thing that we as humans can fall into so easily is if we're not careful, we will always prioritize the institution over the individual. We will do that every time. Because if someone says something or they speak out or they push back on the status quo, the rest of the herd oftentimes will descend upon them and they are the bad person. And we can trust but verify. We can actually have people investigate things. Like there are things out there, but oftentimes we will push away people that, try to offer a narrative that is not the one that we believe or want to believe. And
Mm,
sometimes we want to see what we want to see. And so I think I think when we value the institution over the individual, the vulnerable person will be hurt 9 times out of 10.
yeah, yeah. So, were you always vulnerable?
No, gosh, no.
And
No.
tell me, as a man,
No, no, and it's still hard. It's like one of my friends, Jessica Minhas, like she's an incredible leader. She has an organization called I'll Go First, and I'll never forget, she used to pick at me in New York. She'd be like, "Haha, you wrote the book on vulnerability." I'm like, "Shut up." She's like, You wrote the book on vulnerability." I'm like, "Stop it." And I think it's because I actually kinda I don't like vulnerability. And I think that's why she makes fun of me because I don't love it. And I've had people say, "Well, you're good at it." I might have my days, but it is always a conscious thing. I make choices to share things with people. I make choices to and I do have boundaries too. So like I'm not gonna share everything, and not everyone deserves your vulnerability. Not everyone does. It's like some people will get more vulnerability than others, but some people aren't ready to receive that. And some people will use it against you. And I think it's like just kind of knowing that. But for me, when I was younger, it was all about proving myself. It was all about, like, being enough. It was all about not being vulnerable because if whether it was being a pastor who preached the perfect sermon, which that's where my perfectionism came from. Like, it came from the stuff, like family origin stuff where I was just like, if I can be perfect and have it all together, then I'm worth loving, I'm enough. It's gonna be great.
I'm the same way.
It sucks, doesn't it? It's a hard way to live.
Yeah.
But
Trauma.
yeah, it's
Yay.
a whole thing, and what I have found is my circles are smaller now. They're way smaller, and I'm also not trying to make a name for myself or anything like that these days. I'm just over here like, I'm just honest, and this isn't virtue signaling either. I'm just like, I went through a really long dark night of the soul for like 5 years, and now I'm at a place where I'm like, I'm creating for me and the people around me and the people that I'm connecting with, and what I'm finding is that there are levels of like abstraction. There's like other people who are kind of being drawn in.
Yes.
And it's not about saving myself anymore. It's not about fixing myself. It's about saying, you know what? I'm made of the same dirt that you are. And that's okay. Like we are loved. We're enough. We're enough in our not enoughness, It's like because like Jesus created us, but not only that, he died for us. You're
Mm,
enough, man. You're enough. And like as a guy, you don't speaking to men like it's okay. You don't have to prove yourself to God and everyone. And the most masculine figure in all of creation cried in front of his boys the night before he died. He didn't charge down the cross like a martyr.
mm. Would you say that you're emotionally, like, intelligent?
I hope so.
Like, you know what I'm saying, though? Because most men are not.
I think I think
And I think women nowadays, we're talking about it more. Or as you get older, you go for the pretty guy, the hard, tough guy when you're young. But then you realize as you get older, you have deeper needs. And one is like, that's where safety comes in, right? That's that security
yeah.
where you're like emotionally available, right? You are mentally available. I just like feel like men in general should be encouraged that we're not looking for more six pack and muscles. We are looking for people that can carry us and create safety for us to express our emotions and connect with us and be vulnerable with us in that way. That's the best kind of intimacy. And that's what it takes in marriage is for two people to be emotionally and mentally safe for each other.
And I think that's it because how many of us, and we probably don't even recognize it because you talk about emotional intelligence. I think at the root of emotional intelligence is self-awareness. I think we have to become
Yeah.
self-aware and we have to become honest. We have to allow ourselves to be who we are. Like Martin Luther would talk about this idea of calling a thing a thing. He would say the law calls a thing a thing. I think in our lives, we have to be willing to call a thing and just be like, "All right, this is where I'm at. Don't love it, but I accept it, and now maybe if I want to, I can do something about it." But
I
yeah,
love that, if I want to,
yeah,
because yeah, like for me, I always tell people I'm so honest in the regard, like, if you really want to be honest with yourself, it's hell.
you
Like
can be.
to really look at yourself in the mirror, and to see where there are issues or maybe how people treat you. But like it's necessary for growth. It's necessary to become self-aware. Like that is the biggest thing. Would you say you're self-aware?
I am more self-aware now than I've ever been.
Does it scare you, like, what you don't know? Like, I'm at a point in my life where it's like, God, like, 5 years ago, you think, like, "So wise, I so got it," and then you realize, "No, my gosh," and so now I'm like, "What are the next 5 years am I gonna learn about myself?" Like, Lord.
Well, I think we're dynamic. And I think that, you will always be you, but I feel like there's different versions of us that kind of pop up, along the way as we grow, as we change, as we shift, things are exposed. And so it's like, I feel like I know about as much of me now as I can know. And I've
Mhm.
done the work. I mean, I hit rock bottom a couple of years ago and faced a lot of things and just faced my own perfectionism, faced my own self-loathing, and that was driving so much, like my own like oh
Self-deprecation.
my gosh, like a coach told me that, and he used a different word here, but I'll use a more sanitized word. He said, "I'm my own jerk best friend." And I think realizing that and then accepting things like, how many times like when we do stuff that's wrong, do we go into denial and we're like, I didn't really no, it and then I think for me, it's like I just faced like, I said this today, and this is why I said it. And I'll look in the mirror. I read several books on self-esteem and confidence, and it really helped me.
Did you read that one? This book?
I think so, maybe? Well, yes, I got a copy of that one, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I know
Did
that
it
one,
help you? Obviously, this is the best one.
which is a great book on confidence and all the things, and I think for
Just
me no, it's like, yeah, my books are you can't really see them, but they're, like, right there, like, right over my left
I
shoulder.
love the black shelves, by the way. Totally fit the vibe.
Oh, no, thank you. It's like
Feel it, feel the
I've got this
vibe.
kind of dark academia thing going on, and I don't know, I really love the idea of facing down your demons and just accepting what's happening. And, like, if you lose your temper on someone, being like, "Yeah, I did that." And not going into,
Mhm.
"Well, you did this." Be like, "What I know is I did it. Sorry." Or even just telling yourself you're sorry, or taking that self-awareness and
Yeah,
allowing that to go out in confession to God and be like, "God, I said this to this person. I intentionally tried to hurt this person or gossip about this person or derail this ministry," or whatever the thing or
if
like
they get to that point, like, some people are like, "Well, I did it because," right?
and
You know what I'm saying?
oh, yeah, and, like, what I have found is denying something's existence doesn't keep that thing from popping up.
Yeah,
And denial didn't help me. I was good at it. It didn't
they're
help
trying
me.
to change history.
Yeah, you can't be a revisionist. You actually just have to own things and be like, "Yeah, I zigged when I should have zagged there, and I'm sorry." It's
Well,
like
I think that it should be deeper than that because it's like, I yelled, but I think what people have a hard time is they understand the behavior is wrong, but people are too scared to ask themselves why they behave that way.
that's a great question, or that's a great point. It's like something is fueling it, because what I've found that our presenting issues are rarely our prevailing issues.
Listen to this wisdom, y'all. So good.
Yeah, it's like it's funny, it's like the things that, like, are on the surface, the kind of frustrating things, you may get snappy at somebody or you may whatever.
Yeah, but I feel like we have to be.
That's not the thing. There's something
That's what I'm
deeper.
saying. I feel like sometimes that's just part of owning. I don't think it's the whole process of owning. I think it's a part of it. And what I've learned is that like, yeah, I yelled at my kids today. I used to have this thing when I first started like getting on social media and all the things, Raleigh, and I used to say, I shout for Jesus and also at my kids. And like, but to go deeper, have a responsibility to be like, but why?
Well,
But why do you lie? But why do you try to manipulate? But why are you selfish? Why are you guarded? Why do you sabotage? Why? Why do you need to get on social media every day?
And I think at the heart of every, I will say it like this, like a functional savior, an idol, whatever, that thing that we go to fix our problem. At the heart of it is the need for some form of salvation. We want healing. We want to be rescued, and we do these things for a reason. And I think for me, like you talk about that thing that was deeper, there were things for me that were presenting, and they were causing friction in my life, like over the years, like just, and it wasn't all the time, but they would pop up. And it wasn't until I realized that my perfectionism came from a wound, and it was my way of like trying to save myself, heal myself, fix myself. And if I could just get it right, then I was enough. Doing that deep work, I'm not gonna lie, it was really hard. And
It's hard.
and it wasn't, but it wasn't impossible, and it wasn't something I could do by myself. I did read a lot of books, but I had people, and it's like the real people kind of showed up, and the people that I've been friends with for a while. Like I remember one guy. He is, to say like a man's man, like that shtick. He is that guy. Like this guy he is a masculine dude in every way. Every day he texted me to check on me emotionally. Every day he called me. And then when he realized that I was at a point where I was healing pretty good, baby bird left the nest, he stopped calling me. Like he just stopped. I mean, he had me for about a month, and he was like listening to podcasts. He was like reading newsletters and stuff. And he goes, he didn't say it as much. He just stopped. And it wasn't like a abandoning nod. It wasn't anything like that. It was like, I got you there. Like, because you needed a friend to kind of walk through that with you. And you do. You can't do it
Those
on
are
your
the best
own.
kind of people, though, I feel
Yeah.
like.
And he's a guy that like, well, yeah, he's the real deal. Like I can take anything to this friend and he'll be there. We've got that friendship, but he'll also be that guy who's like, okay, well, we need to process. He won't even say it like that. He's like, okay, now let's move forward. It's like,
I
or
love it, though. I love that.
it's
Like,
yeah.
I
And I think
feel
we
like
need to have those friends and be those friends.
we need to be those friends. Yeah, like we don't need to just take, take, take. We're gonna have to
Right.
start giving, giving, giving. But there is
Right.
a season that we should take, and
Yeah.
God will bring people in your path to give you that and sustain you. But then when you come out of the nest, then you get to start being that for someone else, and it is really truly, you'll just know everything. I feel like when God calls you, it's natural, it's not forced. Does anything that God calls you to do, any relationship, that's what I'm thinking about. Like, I know what calls me to do, but now I'm on this other level of like any relationship, like, I'm not going to force it. I'm not going to fake it. I'm not going to fake force this relationship. Like, I'm just going to be like, it didn't work out, or it let be naturally connected. And I'm not saying every relationship should be the same, right? You have this one person for this thing, and you have this one person for this thing, and and so you have mentors and then friends, and yeah, like my inner circle is two people,
Yeah.
two,
Yeah.
because I think we should keep our circles small, but I also think that we should also keep our table open if other people want to sit at it. Do you know what I'm saying?
No, I like that because that's what a boundary is, right? Like a wall keeps you locked in. A boundary is something where you can kind of open the fence door, go out, have a couple people in, you can escort them out. It's like you don't necessarily, but but a boundary still, the majority of it's covered, but there are entry points. And I like that idea of you saying, yeah, like being open to having people sit at your table. Because it's funny, like as you're talking, like I came and I was in New York City, I was in Chicago, I was in these major metropolitan areas, loving it. But I think there was a core part of me that was yearning for belonging and community. And I sort of had it. I did. But I've been the past couple of years praying about what does home mean. And now I'm basically in my hometown. I'm in the beach. I'm in a little place called Cocoa Beach, but it's a little beach town. But
Where's Cocoa Beach?
it's if you look at the state of Florida, you look at Orlando, and then you drive all the way east until you hit water, and that's basically you'll drive right into my driveway.
Jealous.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's cool. It's cool. It was funny. I found good rent here, and I was like, this is the dream. I always either wanted to live in a city or a beach town, and so now I'm like in this place where I went during my childhood, and I've got these friends that I've been friends with for 35 years. And what's really blown my mind is I was so scared about coming home for so many years. I never wanted to come back. I never wanted to come back. And now it's in this place that I feared the most, in a sense, where I've got some of the best community that I've had in years. And I'm reconnecting with people every week. I'm connecting with somebody, and like I've got these people who they're just down. Like they're just down people. Like we're, and I think sometimes when we go through those hardships that kind of lead us away from the success or lead us away from the shiniest versions of ourselves, sometimes that leads us to the people that
We
aren't gonna run
actually
away from you,
are
that are gonna
yearning
sit
for the
with you.
most. Yeah. Because, like, I'm going to be vulnerable, well, transparent. There's a
I like that.
difference between
Yes,
vulnerability and transparency.
100%.
Yeah. Like, like I have thousands of followers all over the internet. I have a book with the, biggest publishing house in the world. I live in a beautiful home. I drive a beautiful car. And years ago, I thought that's everything that I have accomplished was like, if I just accomplish that, like I don't like labels, but I'm like very Enneagram 3,
Yeah, sure.
very evolved, very like, if I wasn't a Christian, I would probably be a narcissist. Just saying. But basically, like, I got there and I never felt more lonely in my life. And now that like I'm in this position I'm in, I'm yearning for those real connections again, which God is everything I've prayed for. It always comes. The answers are yes and amen. But it's just not in the way that we think it should be. And if it took this to really get those real, raw, people don't go away connections, it's all worth it. Like every day, every pain, every tear, every mistake and it is a mistake because I want, I'm not making an excuse for it, is worth it. But Raleigh, we are running out of time. I want you to tell people where they can connect with you and where they can get your book and where they can learn about your ministry. And is it something that like people can donate to? And then also, I want to do something for like 2 minutes that I've never done. You want to do it with me?
What are we gonna do? What's happening?
I'm going to grab the live and I'm going to do a Q&A.
Okay.
Is that cool? So anybody, Lucy, that wants to ask questions, if we want to pin that, and wants to ask Raleigh,
Yeah,
am I
that's right.
saying it wrong
Yeah, that's
again?
right,
Raleigh wants to ask him questions or ask me questions, and we're going to be publishing this to everybody. And so this is something I'm hoping that will work out and we can regularly do where we want to hear from you. We want to answer your questions. We want to hear from our community and our audience. And so please, like if you're not watching live, put your questions on YouTube, which they verified me, Raleigh. Like I didn't even ask to be verified. I have
Nice.
maybe 9,000 subscribers. Like
Nice.
my videos are not,
Verification.
yeah, I know. I was like, okay, Jesus, like you're still moving. Okay. So, like, like basically comment, subscribe, leave ratings, reviews, tag us on social media. We want to hear from you. We want to hear what the Lord's doing in your life, and we want to be vulnerable, like Raleigh's book, and connect in that way. So, where can we, all the things, and then we're going to do just like a 2-minute Q&A.
So the best way to connect with the organization is LMPG, like letmypeoplego.org. So lmpg.org.
Okay.
If you want to follow us, all of our socials and stuff are on the website. And you want to follow me on any of the socials, it's at Raleigh Sadler on everything. And it's like the capital of North Carolina and then Sadler with 1D. And so, yeah, that's basically we're a nonprofit working with churches, and we thrive based on individual donors and churches who come alongside and say, we want to help you help churches do the thing that churches want to do in the first place. Help Christians do the thing that they want to do in the first place, but they don't know where to start. And
Yeah.
so that's kind of where we are. So we welcome anybody just reaching out. And yeah, just
What about the book?
you can find the book on Amazon and really where all good books are sold. And I generally send people to the Kindle version. I'm like, just get the Kindle
Get the
version and
Kindle
forget about it.
version.
Just
Yeah.
get the Kindle version and forget about it. Just go for it.
Yeah. I love that that's where you're at in your life.
Yeah, just get the Kindle version. It's the
Yeah.
content.
It's that contentment, like trusting God and not like for me, like I'm living in a no expectation season and I'm allowing myself to feel the waves of grief. And, when I'm sad, I'm sad. When I'm, angry, I'm angry, and not look at that as weakness, but as
No,
strength and let time do what time does. Raleigh, I'm so excited you came on and I'm really honored. I find you extremely intelligent.
thank you.
And I am so grateful. I hope that we can continue to dive into these subjects because we have such, I'm just, part of me is like, welcome to my new co-host. Raleigh's going to be my, I want to co-host so bad. Like, I genuinely don't like talking to myself.
I get
Okay.
that. I get that so much. I
I
get that so much.
I feel like people like it when I have guests, or I don't know. I just feel like, I don't know, it's something to consider. Okay, so everybody say hi. I can't, it won't, they said I could switch my camera over, but like, I don't see where I can do that, to be honest with you, like at all. Anyways, okay, anybody have any questions for I or Raleigh? And this will be published, so your people are gonna are know you. They're gonna know you. That's okay. If you're like, I want to ask an anonymous question, ask an anonymous question. Hey, Stacy. Hey, Lucy. Okay, so Noah, in the midst of grief, how does one explain? Do you want to answer that, or you want me to answer that? I mean, I'm still going through grief. What would you say? What would you say? Let me see if I can like
You know,
flip.
I appreciate you sharing that, and
Thank you, Stace.
I'm sorry that you've gone through that. Like I'm genuinely sorry. It's I'm kind of processing things with my own family right now, and so it's something I'm thinking about a lot.
Me too. Maybe I can do it.
I think at the end of the day, the change becomes self-evident. People just start noticing. It's not about proving ourselves or convincing others. And
I was about to say, I so want to answer. You know I do. Like, who cares what they think?
yeah,
Who cares if they don't think you're changed? Like, the question, honestly, as a coach, I'm a coach. The question, honestly, is like, why do you feel the need to explain yourself to others that you
yeah,
changed?
yeah.
That's what I'm going to come back with, is a question. I'm totally interrupting my friend Raleigh, but he's going to have to get used to that. So,
No, no, and I think that's it, right? That's totally it. Like it's
yeah.
because you don't have to do that. So what about and I think that's where the performanceism, that's where the perfectionism, we've got to do enough to be loved. And I don't know your story, the person who asked the question, but for me, if I asked that question, that's what I would be dealing with.
Yeah, I think it's deeper, and I'll give this to you for free. If you were like our generation and the generations before us, were very much, you don't matter, don't speak, just be seen,
That's
sit
right.
down,
Yeah.
no feelings, no emotions. And so we, say hi, hug her. You better hug her right now. Or, say hello. Like I'm from everywhere. Like, I feel like we were kind of like born into people pleasing, right? Like, we were born into the realm of like, I just need to explain myself to them. I just need to explain. I need to do that. You don't. You really don't. Actually, you should allow grief in itself as a question we could dive into. It does change you. You learn to live with grief. You don't get rid of it. You just learn to live and coexist with your grief,
Yeah.
coexist with your
Yeah.
feelings. Don't shame them. But the one thing is like, I would just challenge you to be like, am I okay if God and I are the only ones to know that I changed? That's a deeper question. And
Yeah.
those are the questions that were hard. And that's what I coach people on, Raleigh, is like,
That's so good.
basically,
That's
yeah,
good.
like basically, I'm here to help you have confidence in yourself. And
Yeah.
the way I do that is I'm going to ask you to answer your own hard questions, because that's going to open up your mind to comprehend, to start thinking and processing like, well, dang, right?
I noticed in my own life that people would come to me and they'd be like, "You're handling things way different than you handled them last time." And I'm like, "Am I? I didn't even know."
It's natural.
And then it's just like, but it wasn't about me. Like it wasn't performative at all. It was just I was just like, yeah, it was natural. And so yeah, it's a great
Yeah.
question.
Or joy, like a supernatural. Like, I actually don't like it. I've learned to like it because I know what people mean by it now, but I used to like actually despise when people would tell me that you're so strong.
Yeah.
I don't want to be strong. I want to be in my feminine energy. I don't want to keep surviving. I want to live. I want to be in my feminine energy. I want somebody to be in their masculine energy. And like, that's what I want. But I understand like what they were saying is more so like, but you're getting up out of bed. You're getting dressed. You're still showing up for your kids. Like, you're allowing yourself to feel. You're allowing yourself to grieve. You're allowing yourself to like send the text to the ex-boyfriend or whatever for you, and then just be like, I did it. I didn't keep my no contact order. try again tomorrow. Like you just give yourself a break and
Yeah.
stop trying to be performative and start just being real, because real, I've always said this, real is what starts revival. It's what starts revival. All right.
Yeah.
Go
100%.
ahead, Raleigh. I'm just getting all these
No,
questions. I have some more
no,
people.
I was just gonna say I have a friend who is he's a Christian. He's like a former like psychotherapist guy, and I remember telling him several months ago, there was a lot happening, a lot of transition. And I said, on one hand, I am experiencing immense joy, like not happiness, but like joy.
It's, yeah, not happiness. Yeah.
And on the other hand, I'm experiencing like deep, deep pain at changes and stuff that are happening in life with like family and stuff. And I'm like, and I'm holding both of them together. And I hadn't done that before. And he's like, yes. He's like, yes. Like that's life. That's the beauty of life. Like if you can hold the pain and you can hold the joy and realize that it's okay to feel both, you're on to something at that point, I think.
You're welcome. He gave you all this for free. And it'll come out in May, so you better go subscribe. We're going to answer one more question and then we will let everybody go. Somebody asked a question about, that's really good. Noah said, I have lost people. She was foundational. So yes, I changed. I feel like that's really good.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I have lost people. She was foundational. So yes, I changed.
Yeah.
Wow, Noah. That's so real with yourself. That's
Really good.
that's really good, right? What would you say to that? Do you want to dive into that comment? I think it's good, but like what are you chewing on that?
No, I just appreciate the honesty. I appreciate the authenticity because I do feel like losing someone, and I don't understand the exact situation, and I won't ever. Like that's the thing. We all think just because we've lost people that we know the depths of someone's loss when they're going through it. And we don't. But what we can do is just come alongside and be like, I love you though. I'm sorry. And I
Yeah.
do think it does change you because I think scripture talks about us being conformed to the image of Christ. And I do believe that we're conformed to the image of Christ through what we suffer. Even
Mm,
in Hebrews, it talks about Jesus. Although he was a son, he learned obedience through what he suffered, through his own suffering. And Hebrews 5:8. And I think for a lot of us, that loss will change you. Loss will either cause you to go in and not be vulnerable and keep people away and hide and run to the bottle or run to whatever functional savior you have,
mm,
or
my gosh, Noah.
loss will cause you to take inventory and say, okay, this sucks and I'm going to feel it, but I'm going to live differently because this person, their life impacted me. There's a positive and negative way that you can take when we experience loss.
I could sit here. Noah, could you just pray about being my co-host? Like I knew that we were going to be like platonic because we had interviewed my book before. Or I felt that way. Maybe you didn't feel that way.
No, it was good. It
I
was
don't want
good.
to speak for
Well, I
you. I
remember
don't want to
because I was,
speak for you.
huh?
I don't want to speak for you.
No, no, no. I remember in that first talk, I was like, can I come on your show? And I didn't know if
Yeah.
you were going to be like, no, 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 no. You're just some random podcast host that I didn't
We
know,
don't do that here.
but I could tell that, yeah, I was like, we kind of spoke the same language. And so
Yeah. Yeah. I don't do that here. I don't do by status. I do by servanthood.
I respect that.
Okay.
I respect it.
Okay. We could just dive into all these things that the Holy Spirit is bringing to us. Okay. So there's one person asking about boundaries. I'm not even going to try to bring up the question because it's all the way back up there. Who wants to know? Gosh darn it. Hold on. Yes, I said gosh darn it. Hate me. I don't care. I love this one too. Real starts revival. Need that on a shirt. Girl, I got a merch store. Shoot. Lots of like going live. And then also, I hope I'm not delayed. Am I delayed, Raleigh?
No, you're fine.
Okay. So, okay, one more question. Okay. What would you say on top of that, the grief aspect and explaining yourself? How would you set boundaries and kind of that way?
Yeah, I think it comes back to this lesson that I learned a few years ago, and I'm still revisiting this idea of not everyone deserves your vulnerability. Not everyone's really, I feel like people that should be shared with people who I don't want to say earned it, but like have shown that they are trustworthy and safe people in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And I have definitely in the past made the mistake of thinking, oh, yeah, this is my brand. I'm just vulnerable. And I would try to be vulnerable with people who were not safe to be vulnerable with. And it wasn't a healthy thing for me. It made things worse, and then it made me not wanna be vulnerable with anyone, including myself.
Yeah, I think we have to use discernment. And then on top of that, like I can always tell when I can't be vulnerable with somebody, but I tend not to trust that feeling, that gut instinct. And I'll try and it feels forced and then they judge, or it just feels like there's like a misconnection or whatever. And I just don't get vulnerable with them again.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. I get that 100%.
Yeah. Okay, well, that was our last question. You guys are amazing. Go subscribe to Mercy Cast. Did I say that right? The
Yes, Mercy
Mercy
Cat.
Cast Mercy Cast podcast. Go buy the book because this is like the main thing. Like I'm as a coach, I want you to go buy the book and just buy mine too.
Yeah, yeah, definitely buy that one. Yeah.
Also, subscribe to Confidence and Coffee as well. If this brought you any value, this podcast, then drop the reviews and get it out. Okay. Get it out to the world because it helps. And I want more subscribers. I'm not going to lie. I want more listeners and downloads. Like, that's so good for me. I want this to be my number one business. Like, not even going to lie about that. So help me out here, people. Okay. Love you guys. And I'll see you next time on Confidence and Coffee.
Hey, you guys, if this episode hit home, do me a favor. Screenshot it, share it to your stories, and tag me, Ashley Henriot, so I can hype you up. And if you're feeling bold, leave a review. It helps this podcast reach more women who need it. Remember, confidence isn't something we wait for. It's something you build. Keep going, keep growing, and I'll see you next time on Confidence and Coffee right here.